What's up, homies? Welcome to my lair. We're sitting here talking about the War of Art today, and we have been just going through this book like 10-15 pages at a time. And right now what we're going to do is page 61 all the way through page 81. And we're in the portion of the book where Steven Pressfield starts talking about how to actually combat resistance. All right, well, let me turn one more light on here. We got to shed a little more light on the situation. Beautiful. Good morning, Zandra. How are you? Today is the Pacific Daylight Savings Time, or whatever you guys call it. So we had to fall back an hour. So I got to spend the morning just reading books and I drank an extra latte today because we got an extra hour. So hopefully y'all got your extra cup of coffee. Good evening, Kim. It's getting dark there. Xander says today is fallback. Yeah, so if you check your clocks around the house, maybe your microwave, you'll notice that it's an hour different than on your cell phone. Yeah, Kim's back east, so they're 3 hours ahead. So what? It's 5:06 there. Yeah, so now we just lost an hour of light. So welcome to winter. If you work nights like me, you're going to struggle to get that extra vitamin D. So I do take a vitamin D supplement. But that's neither here nor there. The War of Art, babes. Did you guys read your pages? How was your week? I really enjoyed the quote on page, I think it's 61. I really enjoyed this quote. It says, "It is one thing to study war and another to live the warrior's life." And that's from Telamon of Arcadia, mercenary of the 5th century BC. Again, it's one thing to study war and it's another to live the warrior's life, right? So we're talking about the difference between logic and a concept and actually applying it. Zandra saying that quote was good. Book smart versus street smart. Exactly. And then I was kind of ruminating on this and I said, action over rumination, bravery over indecision, and dedication over regret. Because what is that other quote? It's you regret 100% of the risks you didn't take, or 100% of the chances you didn't take, right? So we're going to delve into the difference between a professional and an amateur. Again, I like to say that Steven Pressfield, he's got some really good concepts in this book, but just with any type of information and opinion-based thing, it's good to take advice from people that are in the industry and, weigh it against your heart, because some of this might be conflicting with something that you feel. Maybe one day you're going to resonate with it, and the next day maybe you're not, or vice versa. So we just like to have this discussion open. So if you are tuning in, join in the chat. We like to talk about our opinions on all this. So professionals versus amateurs. So Steven says that aspiring artists can be defeated by resistance, and they share one trait. They all think like amateurs. They have not yet turned pro. And the resounding theme through this is that turning pro means you show up whether you feel like it. You have a scheduled time and you show up every time. So whether you feel like it, whether you feel like you're going to do good work or not, it's quantity over quality. It's that actual schedule. It's maintaining that rigidity. So he's saying that his life can be divided into two parts: turning pro and after. Zandra's in the chat. She says, word. So turning pro and after, right? So professional is an ideal. The professional, in contrast to the amateur, let's consider these differences. The amateur plays for fun. The professional plays for keeps. The amateur, the game is his avocation. To the pro, it's his vocation. The amateur plays part-time and the professional full-time. Again, it's that you're showing up, you're clocking your hours. The professional is there 7 days a week. The word amateur comes from the Latin root meaning to love. So the conventional interpretation of this is the amateur pursues his calling out of love, while the pro does it for money. But the way Stephen Pressfield sees it is that the amateur doesn't love the game enough. If he did, he would not pursue it as a sideline, distinct from his real vocation. The professional loves it so much that he dedicates his life to it. He commits full time. That's what I mean when I say turning pro. Zandra says, I liked the weekend warrior versus the weekday gig. I do too, because, if you can get a handle on your finances and your schedule, and you can figure out how to earn enough money in a limited amount of time, you can break open more time for the thing you actually love. And that's something that I strive to do all the time. Anything that I can do to maximize my effort and maximize my efforts, but also maximize my efficiency, right? So when I'm looking at picking up gigs and jobs, I look at dollar per hour. I look at all that stuff. Like, am I going to be comfortable enough to be able to devote myself to the thing that I actually love, right? So I can't remember what her name is. Oh, Lisa Nichols. She's a motivational speaker, and she is the first Black-owned women company to go public. I think I might be getting my details wrong, but to be a public traded stock. So she's got some really cool information out there. But Lisa Nichols says, oh no, I'm losing it. Oh, this is what she says. Lisa Nichols says that your employer, you should consider to be your investor, right? They're investing in you. And what you do with that money is you invest it in a basic life, and then you invest it in your savings so that you can afford to actually go full time once you've built your business up. So she's saying that she would clock in at her normal job. She stopped doing things like getting her nails and her hair done, and then at the evening she would literally clock in every single day to her business, and she would work, I think, from 6 p.m. to, I think she said midnight, and then she'd get up in the morning and go to her regular job, who she called her investor. And I really like that mindset. I think that's really cool. And I think that we can all, if you look at your employer as your investor while you're working to build your business for your craft, I think that that's a really interesting way of looking at it. And I think it can be really helpful to think of it in that way. So Zandra says she also likes the amateurs don't love it enough part. She says that it resonated with me about the fun things that she doesn't do. I don't love it less. I love other things more. Right. Yeah. Or perhaps it's just a matter of prioritizing the things you love in a better way. That's a better reflection of how you feel. Right. So sometimes I think that can be the case. So Kim says, being a full-time artist, I grab any opportunity to make money. Repairs, classes, commissions, craft shows, Etsy, and more. Exactly. Yeah. So making sure that you're making your ends meet so that you can show up for your craft. I love that. Yeah. So Kim is here. She's a full-time artist. She has her own studio, and she's been doing this for quite some time. So Kim knows what she's talking about. So let's listen to Kim. So prioritize that money-making thing so that you can really, really, really enjoy what it is you're doing. So yeah, I really like that part too. So we've got a professional here. A professional. I only write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp, somebody says. So this is Somerset Mogham says, I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp. And Stephen says that is a pro, because he's showing up every morning at X time, and he's doing it. In terms of resistance, Mogham was saying, I despise resistance. I will not let it faze me. I will sit down and do my work. Of course, this is pure conjecture. Well, perhaps. I guess I can't really quantify that. But I despise resistance. I will not let it faze me. I will sit down and do my work. It's just the same thing. If you're scared of something, still get up and do it. If you don't feel like it, you still get up and do it. And then he goes on to say that by performing the mundane physical act of sitting down and starting to work, he set in motion a mysterious but infallible sequence of events that would produce inspiration, as surely as if the goddess had synchronized her watch with his. He knew if he built it, she would come. And let me tell you, when I sit down, like the longer I go between painting sessions, the more resistance I feel to sitting down. But the thing is, every single time I sit down, I know that that feeling of resistance can only last so long. And even if that feeling of resistance lasts the entire time I have available to me to paint, I still am proud of myself for showing up and making that time, even if during that painting session, I'm not feeling great about it. The thing is, I show up and I'm doing it. Got a lot of action here in the chat room. Zandra saying, in Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, there is an episode on Nigeria, and someone says, everyone in Nigeria has 10 side jobs. Their side hustles have side hustles. That sounds like me. My side hustles have side hustles, and like you start a side hustle and then you can delve into like a better way to do that side hustle, right? Like, so I've been delivering for Amazon on the side for years now, and a friend recently was like, yo, why are you delivering for Amazon? You can make that same amount of money in less time doing Instacart. And so now I'm just like, oh shit, I'm gonna try out Instacart because I can make way more money doing that and have way more time. That'll like, I think it was something like I could shave at least half the time off and make close to the same amount of money doing like one delivery versus like 40 for Amazon. So love to hate Amazon. It's been there for me. Love having it in my back pocket, but you know, I'm trying to hustle, baby. My side hustle has a side hustle. So Zandra says, I think of being an artist that way. Partly inspired by this book and y'all's feedback, I've actually been putting sitting down into practice and making myself sit at the keyboard for 10 minutes a day. I love that you're doing that because it only takes 10 minutes, right? So all that it takes is 10 minutes. And then if you have to get up and move, fine, great. But then you're going to be refreshed, right? So that 10 minutes fuels you and your desire to sit down for the next 10 minutes for the next day. And chances are when you sit down for 10 minutes, you're going to want to sit down for an hour after that. But, you know, you can help dissuade some of that resistance by saying, I only have to do 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I'm done. And, you know, that works. It's really cool. I like these brain hacks. These are really good. So Zandra says, I've even written a few weird little 4-bar ditties. I sat down and things happened. Exactly. It's like he says here, as surely as if the goddess, performing the mundane physical act of sitting down and starting to work, he sets in motion a mysterious but infallible sequence of events that would produce inspiration, as surely as if the goddess has synchronized her watch with his. It's beautiful. Zandra's in the chat room laughing. She sat down and things happened. That's pretty cool that you wrote down 4 little bar ditties. I like that you specified that they're weird 4 little bar ditties because there's going to be a sense of uniqueness and maybe your style is going to come out. Like maybe allowing yourself to be silly and playful is going to allow you to really tap into what you can bring to the table as an individual as far as like your unique style. So that's really cool that you brought that up because I think that's also imperative to developing and refining a style is that play, right? That experimentation. All right. What? So what a writer's day feels like. Zandra's in the chat room saying, word. I thought I'd get a word out of you. You're a good word girl. So facing this daily resistance, we have an analogy here on what the writer's day feels like. Stephen Pressfield's likening it to a hunting trip, which doesn't really resonate with me, but I'll read parts of this. I don't really, so he's saying he's aware of resistance. Every single day when he wakes up, he's aware of that feeling of resistance in his gut. And so it's basically that momentum you have to keep, or it's that action you have to take to push past it and just continue what you're doing. So he affords the resistance respect because he knows it can defeat him on any given day just as easily as the need for a drink can overcome an alcoholic. So he's saying when he wakes up, he feels this resistance. The clock is running in his head. He knows he can indulge in daily crap for a little while, but he has to cut it off when the bell rings. So he's keenly aware of the principle of priority, which states that A, you must know the difference between what is urgent and what is important. And you must do what's important first, right? So if there's things that you can do to work towards a long-term goal, it's very important that you chip away at them day by day, little by little, and they'll compound over time, right? Versus like some of our short-term goals, which, you know, people are telling us are urgent and they're time sensitive. So there's this really, really tightrope-like balance we need to maintain with keeping our word to ourselves that we're going to continue to show up for the important tasks for our long-term goals, and while fulfilling the time-sensitive, urgent things that need to be done, right? So a lot of times we can respond to other people's needs and urgencies and put them in front of our own, which can become unhealthy if we can plug into those. Of course, be there for people, but I found that if I wake up in the morning and I immediately start with my messages, it detracts from the time that I've allotted for myself for my important tasks. So finding that balance is really important. So what I did this morning was I woke up, I spent like maybe 20 minutes on messages, and then I got my stack of books and I got my latte and I read through my books that are going to give me the knowledge to help meet my long-term important goals. So I've done that today. I feel really proud of myself. And again, it's just like Zandra says, even if it's just 10 minutes, just do it. So Zandra says, I like the urgent and important because it caught me off guard in a meaningful way. It's part of my problem. And Zandra, I think that's part of everybody's problem. I think that's part of just being human and learning how to manage your time and manage what's important to you and marry the two. I'm going to open this window so we get a little more light. Oh no! Whoops. My computer's right in front of my window. Okay, this is a lot better lighting. Okay, you know I'm about lighting, guys. So he's saying what's important is the work. Zandra's laughing. Shh. So what's important is the work. That's the game I have to suit up for. That's the field in which I have to leave. So he's saying, do I believe that my work is crucial to the planet's survival? Of course not. But it's as important to me as catching that mouse as the hawk circling outside my window. He's hungry, he needs the kill, and so do I. I need that kill. Okay, that's a gross analogy, but every painting I do fuels me into, okay, I got to do better. I got to do more. Okay, I want to do more. So Kim is saying, I thought there was an earthquake. So what it is, I have this giant window, and when I open the shade, I have to make sure and push it back so that it doesn't knock my computer off my desk here. And I was holding my book, and I messed up. So the shade actually knocked my computer, but thank goodness it's okay. All right. You know, temporary setbacks. So here we've got this hunting analogy. I don't know. Did you guys read this? I thought it was interesting to read, but I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's very like American short story, very poetic. Like you can tell he's like, he's like, weaving the scene. But he's, likening it to the climbing a hill and how it can be a son of a bitch, but you got to climb that hill anyway. He just has to, he goes, I know how to shut up and keep humping. I don't know. Did you guys read this and laugh? Because I'm like, what is shutting up and humping? like chipping away at it. Like, come on, dude. I love it. I love it. I love it. My bitching self is receding now. So he's saying that as he takes, one step in front of the other, like, his negative thought patterns are receding. My bitching self is receding now. Okay, he makes the kill, whatever. Like, I don't really want to read about that, honestly. So Zandra says, I thought it was more like Jaws, that theme music as resistance stalks you under the waves. I mean, yeah, it's always going to be there, right? And Zandra said she didn't even flinch on the humping line. She says it's military jargon. Oh, I didn't know it was military. It's very antiquated regardless. Like, you know, I see the signs that say speed hump and, you know, the 10-year-old in me just giggles. Oh, we've got instructions on how to be miserable. Zandra says, word. So how to be miserable. So the artist committing himself to his calling has volunteered for hell, whether he knows it or not. Zandra says speed hump should mean faster. It's like the slow children signs. It's like, okay, like slow, comma, there are children here, not slow moving children. All right. Yeah, speed hump means faster. Go faster. Just hump it out, baby. So the artist committing himself to his calling has volunteered for hell, whether he knows it or not. Yeah, like it can be, it's like a mind game, right? Like the entire thing, it's like you're battling against yourself for the most part. Like it's a mental game. So you're going to be dining for the duration on a diet of isolation, rejection, self-doubt, despair, ridicule, contempt, and humiliation. The artist must be like a Marine. He has to know how to be miserable. He has to love being miserable. He has to take pride in being more miserable than any soldier or swabby or jet jockey. Because this is war, baby, and war is hell. And for some reason, I'm thinking Austin Powers. This is war, baby. So I say over here, you know, look forward to how you will feel after you've done the work. Proud of yourself. It's like doing that really badass hard workout. Like you got to be proud of yourself afterward. You got to think of how you're going to feel afterward, or else you're not going to feel good about getting up and doing it. And also seek happiness and fulfillment within the face of difficulty, right? Like, so just think, like for me, it's just, how am I going to feel after I do this? You know, it's like cathartic. The pain of creating can be very cathartic as it leaves your body. Like I liken it to like I'm pouring my soul out and pulling it. Like I feel like threads coming out of my heart, and like sometimes it flows freely, and sometimes it's just like, dude, it sucks. But I keep coming back to it. You know, it's consistent. You know, if nothing else. So my drive to do that. So Kim is saying that she's depressed now. She never knew she was supposed to be miserable. Okay, like again, let's take this with a grain of salt. You're not, I personally, I think you're supposed to like, you know, find happiness in whatever moments you can. Like, you know, this is like kind of how I choose to live my life. I'm sorry to hear you're not doing so well, Kim. You've got a lot going for you, and we love you, and I'm here for you. So I think it's important to be open about that too. I think that talking about it can be really helpful, because then you can hear, you know, support and reach out when you need it. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're showing up for yourself anyway. Zandra says her ex was a Marine, and she sent him a pic of this page because it was so real. Dude, it does sound, it's like super military. It's like Jillian Michaels is one of my favorite, like, you know, workout instructors. And she's like that kind of badass, hard ass. She's like, get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Because that's where the growth is, guys. I don't know. How to be miserable. Thank you, Stephen. Kim says, I'm not real depressed, just after his words. I think art is like sex. You get out what you put in. Ooh. Yeah, right? Okay. Zandra says, ew, lol. Zandra doesn't like sex. Yeah, you know, I like that. I like that analogy. Art is like sex. Let's write a book. And Zandra won't read it. Kim and I are going to co-author a book about, it's the Tantra, the art Tantra. All right, anyway. Zandra says word. Just after his words. Okay. Well, so we're all pros already. Zandra's laughing. This is a silly meeting today. And speaking of silly, my painting's all off kilter. You can see my kind of house. Okay, so silly days. We've got quite a bit more to push forward through here. So, and I've got shit to do after this. So, bear with me. I'm trying to speed read here. All right. So we're all pros already. So let's look at this. So Kim's asking what the Post-it notes behind me are. So this is a project that I'm going to be working on next year. I've mapped it out. And because of what I have working right now, I think by maybe February, I'll start working on it. But this is going to be part of my online learning, for the online learning that I'm going to produce for painting, and for art creation. So I'm going to be, I was initially going to do like a 6-week online painting course, and it was going to be kind of like a boot camp. But I think what I'll do is I'll do a slow release of the content that people can do like a monthly subscription to access. And then once I've produced it all for that, I'm going to bundle it into a 6-week package for people that actually want like a military style boot camp. Speaking of military, like a boot camp style, how to like jumpstart your art, and to get past all those blocks. So I think I have a pretty good plan for it. Kim says, cool. Zandra says, I was wondering too. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on there. That's like, I actually have enough content for 2 6-week courses. So once I get, I've got a few things I need to take care of right now, and then I'm going to get going on that. But that's coming down the pike. I was initially going to be really hard on myself and start producing it in this month, actually. But I just have a lot of balls that I'm juggling right now. So we're going to wait, and I'm okay with that. So keep your eyes peeled. All right. We're pros already. So there are principles we can take from what we're already successfully doing in our workday life, and we can apply them to our artistic aspirations. So let's find out what really defines us as a professional. Zandra says she's got balls. I know, big ol' balls. Okay, enough about anatomy. So number 1. Professionals, we show up every day. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you're tired, that doesn't matter. Show up every day. Again, we're just like hammering home these same concepts. And I'm finding that the more of these books that we're reading, the more we can liken the books to each other, and utilize these different perceptions. And again, like variety is the spice of life. So this is really cool. So showing up every day, whether you feel like it or not. And again, the second point, like the first, is we show up no matter what. In sickness and in health, come hell or high water, we stagger to the factory. We might do it only so as not to let down our coworkers or for other less noble reasons, but we do it. We show up no matter what. And I like that he's highlighting the fact that we can show up for reasons that aren't, perfect, and still do the action of showing up. Zandra says, yeah, I was noticing the same trends throughout the books. Yeah, so these books, some of the content can be repetitive, but what's cool about rereading the same thing over and over again is that it's going to get stuck in your head. So repetition means that that's the first thing you're going to think of when you think about a subject, right? So the more and more you take in that content, the more and more easily it will be available to you when you need it, right? So I don't know if you guys have also found that when you're reading through this stuff and you find yourself making excuses for not doing things, that it helps to have this fresh on your mind. So number 3, we stay on the job all day for the entire amount of time that we have allotted. Oh my goodness, we have my friend Allison here. Allison Wall, she says repetition will put the information into your long-term memory. Zandra says word. So yeah, thank you for joining, Allison. Hey, beautiful, she says. Aw, make me blush, baby. Zandra says, hi, Allison. So we pick up the phone when it rings. We assist the customer when he seeks our help. We don't go home until the whistle blows. So we are committed over the long haul. Next year, we may go to another job, company, country, but we'll still be working. Until we hit the lottery, we're part of that labor force. Kim and Zandra are welcoming Allison, and Allison loves the name Zandra. I also think it's really pretty and cute. Zandra's got a great name. So the stakes for us are high and real. This is about survival. This is about feeding our families, educating our children. It's about eating. We accept remuneration for our labor. We're not here for fun. We work for money. So a lot of times, like, especially as artists, people want you to do things for free or very cheap, or they complain about your numbers. They complain about how much it costs. And I think that that's a wonderful time to say to them, I have art prints for sale at a more cost-effective, I don't know. I have art prints for sale at a more easy to manage purchase price. So Zandra saying remuneration. Beautiful. Yeah, so we accept remuneration for our labor. We charge money. Sorry, this ain't for free. You're paying for an entire lifetime of learning my craft. Kim says they always want you to donate a piece for their cause. Allison Wall says remuneration, the money paid for work or a service. They work in excess of their contracted hours for no additional remuneration. Oof, that sounds like me. I'm trying to step away from that. My pricing's changing. I'm constantly evolving how I'm doing things. So it's difficult sometimes when you're experimenting, because I don't necessarily want my clients to pay for my education in essence. Like if I'm experimenting, sometimes it can be difficult to quantify how much something is going to cost and how long it's going to take because of that. So I think that's kind of a fine balance. I have recently adjusted my pricing, and I've just priced my paintings by the square inch. And even so, depending on what I'm painting, that's not even necessarily very accurate or a good way to price. So Zandra's out there. She says, word, prints are good for that. Yeah, so I think offering a print, because art is a luxury item, right? So Zandra says, this girl can't pay $500 for a painting, much to her own sadness. Yeah, so I mean, but art prints are great. You can get a giant art print for like $100, like, and actually like good quality, you know. You can get a medium-sized art print for like 50, you know, and a decent-sized art print for like 20. So, you know, art's a luxury item, and I think us as artists need to really realize that, especially when we're thinking about marketing and who we're trying to put our product in front of. So, interesting. Like I've done a lot of product development in the past few years, and so now what I'm working on is marketing and how I can be smarter, work harder, or work smarter, not harder, right? So we do not over-identify with our jobs. Now, this is a difficult one for me. Give me a word out there if this is for you. I identify as an artist, which is kind of a double-edged sword. Like that's part of my identity, and it can be kind of a weird line. So let's just read. We are not our job descriptions. The amateur, on the other hand, over-identifies with his avocation, his artistic aspiration. He defines himself by it. He is a musician, a painter, a playwright. Resistance loves this. Resistance knows that the amateur composer will never write his symphony because he's overly invested in its success and overly terrified of its failure. The amateur takes it so seriously that it paralyzes him. And I really like this. And I think a lot of artist block comes down to this point to where, you know, if you're overly invested in the end result, that it can be so terrifying that you don't pick up the pen. So I can attest to that. You know, I've experienced that. So Allison says, trade for art, cleaning, organizing, yard work, other artistic work. Yeah, so I think a work trade is reasonable, especially if you gain some, or like, so a work trade is reasonable only if you can spare the time not earning income. So often people ask me to do a trade. And I think for me, what I need to be doing for a trade in the future is trading prints, because that's still more quantifiable. That's still easy, like, because a print to me might cost $15 to $50. Whereas my time spent creating something, I'm really not willing to do a custom product for trade. I'm really not. I put hours into it. I just can't. I'm already pricing my artwork in a way that's maybe not necessarily fair to me. So I really just don't see, I don't have that much time at my disposal to do some shit for free, whether your product is cool or not. Like, I don't know, if your item takes you just as much time as my item, then sure. But for the most part, when people ask me to do trades, that's not the case. So down here we have Zandra. Now that I'm a musician, I don't like that you put musician in quotations, Zandra. You need to own that shit, first of all. Now that I'm a musician and I paint, I get it. It's easier to paint because I'm not a painter. Right, so you're less invested. You're like, okay, this is play, right? Like Kim says, I do not trade. Zandra says, Allison, that's a good idea. Lord knows I'm terrible at keeping up with housework. You know what? That's cool. If someone wants to come and clean my house, but I try and do it as I go. I mean, I've got a few things on the counter back there, but I mean, it's basically clean in here. Allison, that's a good idea. Lord knows. Okay. And then Zandra says, yeah, prints are a good idea. And Zandra says, Kim, I can see that too. So I think if you are going to do a trade, you really need to think about the time you're going to have to invest and what your time is worth to you, right? And what you're going to be giving up in order to do that trade. And if really it's worth it that to you. So I don't know. Zandra says, I'm more like that with other things and that she will trade. Yeah. Like if it's something like an original, I'm going to have a very hard time trading an original piece of artwork to you because it's just, you get a print. I don't know. But, oh, here we go. We master the technique of our jobs. We have a sense of humor about our jobs. We receive praise or blame in the real world for what we produce, I might add. So now consider the amateur, the aspiring painter, the wannabe playwright. How does he pursue his calling? He doesn't show up every day. He doesn't show up no matter what. He doesn't stay on the job all day. For the amount of time he's allotted, i.e. allows distractions. He's not committed over the long haul. The stakes for him are illusory and fake. He doesn't get the money. He over-identifies with his art. He doesn't have a sense of humor about failure. You don't hear him bitching, this fucking trilogy is killing me. Instead, he doesn't write his trilogy at all. And I really like that, because if you're having a hard time and you're showing up and you're doing the work, it's like me. If you knew how many freaking times I said, I hate painting, I don't want to paint again, or, I know that that's not true. I know that that's just me bitching, right? Like, I'm showing up and it's hard, but I'm showing up and I'm doing the work. But if you guys knew how often I said, God, I really hate painting. Like on this, like I'm trying to do this glow effect and I've kind of broken through a little bit. But it's like I show up and I'm just like, oh God, it's like drudgery, right? Like, but I'm committed to it. And there are definitely, don't get me wrong, there are things that I can definitely improve on, like showing up every single day. So, there's always something to improve on. But I really resonate with that a lot. So we have Sandra says, I'm challenged with this. I can't work an 8-hour day with creative stuff unless I've really got the spirit going through me. And then she says, ooh, cool painting. Thank you, Sandra. This is the same one that's been in the background for a while. I've been working on it about a month now. I just kind of sit down here and there and spend a couple hours. And for me, on that same note with the creative stuff, I have logged 8-hour days on my creative stuff. But don't get me wrong, typically 6 hours is a lot for me. And typically 4 hours is like a really good full work day for some of my creative stuff. 2 hours is probably the minimum I really want. 1 hour gets me to a point to where, okay, I'm finally through that resistance and I'm in the flow. So it's really hard for me to sit down for an hour, though I try and do that, because it's still chipping away at it, right? Like you're still chipping away at your, whatever it is you're sculpting and creating. So yeah. So, okay, so let's say you write a poem and you show it to a friend and they say, it's wonderful, I love it. That's your friend being nice to you. That's your friend saying, being encouraging. And that's great. It's wonderful to receive encouragement like that. But nothing is as empowering as real world validation, even if it's for failure. So Zandra says, wow, I max out at about 2 hours. I can go 3 if I'm really masochistic, but then I typically won't sit down again for 3 days. Yeah, and for me, if I don't sit down in 3 days to paint or do work on my craft, I go kind of freaking, like, I feel like really uncomfortable. Like I feel uncomfortable in my own skin. I feel like my emotions are out of whack. So for me, it's like a holistic part of my health. And I will typically go 2 to 3 days without sitting down just because I've been extremely busy lately. But again, like I said, that's what I'm working on. And the longer I go between sittings, the harder it is for me to sit down. So Zandra says she really liked this part about failure. Right, because when I was doing graphic design, you have to work under somebody and you have to have them look at your work and say, okay, this is cool and all, but let's go this direction, right? Like, so some of the stuff that you're really proud of, it doesn't get chosen. And that's real world exposure, right? Like there's a saying in graphic design to where it's like, you show your client 3 options for their project and they pick the worst one. And I absolutely love that, because something that you just think is just so wonderful and great might not be what your client wants. And when you're trading, what is this, remuneration? When you're accepting remuneration for your labor, it matters about your client. And of course, you need to always pursue your own personal projects, that otherwise you're not going to be fulfilled, right? So, and also finding your demographic is really important too. My mom recently told me, not everybody likes to get lost in a painting. And while I respect that, there's some guidance in there and she's trying to help me get my stuff in front of people who have money, who will buy it. And I do consider that, and I have been pondering that. There's also the part of me that says, well, then you're not my demographic. So being able to take what people say with a grain of salt, being able to be like, okay, this isn't personal, and not belittling the efforts that have gotten you to that point, right? So being gentle with ourselves while facing constructive criticism, or even if it's unconstructive criticism, it's real world criticism, you know, it's just the way it is. And you should be proud of yourself for getting this far. So he talks about how he had this big flop of a movie that he was really excited. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You guys have the book. If not, you should buy the book. So after his movie flopped, it was like a huge failure. His friend asked him if he was going to quit, and he said, hell no. And then his friend said, then be happy. You're where you wanted to be, aren't you? So you're taking a few blows. That's the price for being in the arena and not on the sidelines. Stop complaining and be grateful. It's just like I applied to do this mural over here close to my house, and I didn't get chosen for this mural. But the people that were choosing, they were the board of judges or whatever. They emailed me and they were like, "Hey, we didn't pick you for this one, but you know, we'd really like to keep you in mind for any future ones. Can we keep you on our mailing list for future opportunities?" And to me, I'm sorry. This is a big town here. This is a big area in Seattle, and I didn't just get an email saying we didn't select you. I got an email saying, hey, we'd like to keep you in mind for future projects, which to me is a win. There's so many talented people here. Just because you don't make it to your goal doesn't mean that you don't deserve to continue going and growing and reaching for it, right? So Kim says, I love getting lost in a painting. I do not buy any painting until I feel that. Right, exactly. So again, you know, there's people that want different things, and that's okay. Zandra says, that was a good one too. Yeah, the stop complaining and be grateful. You're where you wanted to be. It's hard to have your name out there. I've been networking a lot, and a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, now I have all these people watching me. Now I have to produce. But, you know, I think that's natural, and it's just part of it. It's part of it. You know, you asked for it. I asked for people to look at my art, and now I'm like, okay, well, now I got to continue to produce. And it's kind of daunting sometimes to have that, but I don't necessarily have like a ginormous following, but I don't have a small one either, and I'd like it to get bigger. So I don't know. So Kim says, sometimes a rejection leads to bigger things. Exactly. And it most certainly leads to growth. If you can find some way to learn from it, that is a great way to grow. And you get your name out there, and somebody will recognize your name and maybe think of you for some other opportunity, you know? So for the love of the game, why do you do it? Because you love it. All right. So the professional, though he accepts money, he does his work out of love. He has to love it. Otherwise, he wouldn't devote his life to it of his own free will. I am going to give a big old word to Stephen for this one, because seriously, if I didn't love this shit, I would not show up and feel the drudgery of, you know, having to paint and, you know, break through those mental blocks and show up, even if I'm like, oh God, like, it's so hard. Like, you have to love it. Zandra says, word, if I could quit, I would have done it already. And that's what I keep telling myself too. I love that you were able to verbalize that. If I could quit, I would have done it already. And I might add, if you do quit, all you're going to feel is regret. If you love it. Okay, so let's see. The more you love your art, calling, enterprise, the more important its accomplishment is to the evolution of your soul. Word, Zandra says. The more you will fear it, and the more resistance you will experience facing it. The payoff of playing the game for money is not the money. The payoff is that playing the game for money produces the proper professional attitude, the state of mind that shows up for work despite rain or snow or dark of night and slugs it out day after day. The muse favors working stiffs. The supreme sin is pride. Think of yourself as a mercenary. I love these like violent analogies he gives. Think of yourself as a mercenary, a gun for hire, implants the proper humility. It purges pride and preciousness. Sometimes, I know Zandra likes this one, done is better than none. Resistance loves pride and preciousness. Show me a writer who's too good to take job X or assignment Y, and I'll show you a guy I can crack like a walnut, says Resistance. Right. Are you too good for it? Are you too good for this opportunity? Baby, you got to start at the bottom. You know, I used to bitch and whine and complain because I was like, oh, how do all these artists get these gigs? How is it that, these people get to do this and I don't? And I'll freaking tell you what it is. These people clock the time. I used to bitch about that. And it only took me talking to people, because I would reach out to people and I would say, okay, like, how are you doing this? Because I was like, I wanted it, right? But I didn't quite know how to do it. And, obviously I still don't, we're all learning, we're all evolving. But I would reach out to these people and like, literally, like I would get like, well, you have to show up and do the work. You have to show up and do the work. You have to show up and do the work. You have to show up and do the work. That's what everybody said. And I have this one friend, she can be a bit testy in that she's very honest and she does care. But sometimes the things come out, they sound a little aggressive, but it's only because she's being like that blatantly honest. And she doesn't like, beat around the bush. Right. And so you got to really, like listen to what listen to what she's actually saying rather than how you feel. And she told me, when I was asking her, because I kind of, you're starting out, you kind of want to like try and grab onto other people's coattails and try and figure out how you can slide in with them. But she told me, because I was like, hey, can you let me know? Can you introduce me to these people? Blah, blah, blah. And like she would introduce me to the people. But then she added, instead of looking at all the things I'm doing, you need to be out there doing your research and looking and making your contacts. And I think that both are really important to do. You need to be able to start a dialogue with somebody in a company and be able to introduce yourself, as well as allow the people in your life to introduce you as well. I'm going off on a tangent here. Sorry, guys. So, that sense of entitlement, like, really is unfounded, essentially, is what I'm saying. Like, you gotta show up, do the work, babe. So, a professional is patient. Zandra's giving me a big old word in the chat, and she did type it that way. I'm assuming I pronounced that right. Zandra, please let me know if I pronounced your word right, because it sure looks like it. So resistance can outwit the amateur. It uses his own enthusiasm against him. Resistance gets us to plunge into a project with an overambitious and unrealistic timetable for completion. Zandra says pretty much I pronounced that right. So I like this. So resistance gets us to plunge into a project with an overambitious and unrealistic timetable for completion. Now, you guys asked me about these right here. This behind me is my notes that I did with a client for that commission I was showing you. But these right here, when I initially started, I was going to start producing these with an unrealistic timetable for its completion. It was overambitious. It scared the shit out of me. And it still kind of scares the shit out of me, but then I pulled back a little bit because it's going to be more manageable and I'm not going to freaking go insane and lose sleep over it. Like literally lose sleep because I have to work so hard to produce all this content for y'all. So this is a really good example. I initially said I was going to start producing this in November. Well, I have too many balls in my court. I can't right now. So, and I was initially going to release it as a 6-week course. Well, instead of doing that, I reevaluated it and I thought, okay, well, what's more manageable? What's more realistic? What is something that I can actually do? Okay, well, I'm used to producing videos. I'm used to showing up every week. So really all I would need to do is maybe show up an additional time per week and produce each one. Maybe one every 2 weeks I'll produce one. And then I'll put it on my Patreon, and whoever wants to subscribe to the content can. And then after a certain amount of time, I will have built this entire thing up. And so I think it's important to be honest with ourselves about what is and isn't realistic, because again, that if you set those bars too high, you know, you can be like, well, this is not doable. I'm just going to give up on it. I just can't. It's too hard. So Zondra's in the chat. She's saying this section hits hard. So the professional, on the other hand, understands delayed gratification. Okay, so the professional arms himself with patience, not only to give stars time to align in his career, but to keep himself from flaming out in each individual work. He knows that any job, whether it's a novel or a kitchen remodel, takes twice as long as he thinks, and it costs twice as much. Can I get a word? I've never done a kitchen remodel, but holy moly. I've taken on art projects, and sometimes they do take longer. I do like art projects that have a deadline, though. I definitely do. A little masochistic, but I love it. So Kim says, plan to win. I live by my plans, right? It's either you plan to succeed, or if you don't plan at all, then you're really planning to fail. Zondra says the remodel bit made it super real, right? Especially with a remodel, you got some janky ass 100-year-old house and you rip out the walls because you're trying to like insert something, and then you have to realize all the plumbing's fucked, and so you got to redo all the plumbing. Then it's all right. There we go, real world, baby. A professional conserves his energy. He prepares his mind for the long haul. So this is what I've been learning to do more recently. I've done a lot of really amazing things. I've done a lot that I'm really proud of. And recently I've realized that I've done so by taking on a little bit too much at times. And so that's kind of my vibe I'm working on these days is, okay, let's do smaller steps that compound over a long period of time towards my major goals, because you don't have to meet your goals next month or next year. Even it couldn't be a 5-year goal, you know? So, all right. A professional seeks order. Can I get my OCD babies to give me a word in the house? Also, if this has been bothering me this entire stream, but because I'm stubborn, I'm leaving my painting crooked just for you to make a point. Kim says word for little OCD babies. All right. Everything has to be just so. The professional cannot live like that. In that, so he's talking about how he used to live in the back of his Chevy van, and he had to dig his typewriter out from beneath the layers of tire tools, laundry, and paperbacks. I think all of us can relate to having a less than desirable living situation. If not, you are very blessed. But I relate to this so hard. I had an undesirable living situation on a specific occasion I'm thinking of, and I was basically living in one place half the week and another place the other half the week. And I felt like I was like living out of a suitcase. And then what happened was it tainted my art space, so that my art space wasn't sacred any longer. And so it made it less of a art space and more of a just throw everything in here space. So, I relate to this. So the professional cannot live like that. And give me a freaking word if you know what I'm talking about. He will not tolerate disorder. He eliminates chaos from his world in order to banish it from his mind, which reminds me of that quote, your environment is a reflection of your mind, or vice versa, your mind is a reflection of your environment. If your environment's cluttered and messy, guess what? You're going to feel disheveled and like all that. So Kim says, I lived in a house with no insulation for 2 years. Heat and AC cost a fortune. It was a cute house, though. Ooh, heating bills and there's something to be said for double paned windows. Helps keep everything in. Yeah, I'm really not into overpaying for things. So I'm glad you're no longer there. But 2 years is a long time to pay that much. I know sometimes like housing, like if you have like a big house, it can be like, I don't know, might be an old number, but like $350 a month or something crazy for like freaking electric. Screw that. Disorder and lack of routine hinder our work as we are distracted by clutter and chaos. All right, we're coming up on the hour, so I got to speed through this. I got to go, babes. All right, so a professional demystifies. What does that mean? Let's find out. She views her work as craft, not art. Not because she believes her art is devoid of a mystical dimension. On the contrary, she understands that all creative endeavor is holy, but she doesn't dwell on it. So she concentrates on technique. The professional masters how and leaves the what and why to the gods. So she doesn't wait for inspiration. She acts in the anticipation of apparition. Okay, I love this because I really think that, you know, whether your inspiration or your muse is something mystical, or whether it's, you know, just you and you connecting with you, or whether it's just the compounded knowledge over time that allows you to innovate and do things in your own way. I really, really like this. She doesn't wait for inspiration. She acts in the anticipation of apparition. And again, this comes back to that. I'm going to show up and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do the work because I'm going to trust that whether it comes this sitting or next sitting, the act of me showing up is what allows it to come to me. So the professional shuts up. She doesn't talk about it. She does her work. Release control of the outcome, I say. Trust the technique and trust the process. So we have Kim. No, Zandra says I clean 90% many times, and then at some point the disorder gets enough, I clean it up. But I get a lot of mess. You know, I think, and sometimes for me as a creative, like I'll use cleaning to get immediate gratification for a task when I'm avoiding doing the work on my artwork. So I think it's important to balance cleanliness and chores with what's really important, if that makes any sense. So I'm trying to change it up to, instead of doing like multiple cleaning sessions a week, to just kind of try and wake up a little earlier and maybe carve out a little more time to just clean up as I go. So Zandra says word, and hell yes on the cleaning to procrastinate. So y'all feel me. I know that. So a professional acts in the face of fear. The professional knows that fear can never be overcome. He knows that there is no such thing as a fearless warrior or a dread-free artist. There's no such thing as a fearless warrior. There's no such thing as a dread-free artist. And isn't that comforting to know that we're not alone, right? We're not alone in that. He forces himself forward in spite of his terror. And he knows that he'll be okay. In the end, it reminds me of that quote, you've survived 100% of the hard times that you've faced in your life. You've survived, right? You're here now. So I really like that. All right, professionals accept no excuses. The amateur permits the flu to keep him from his chapters. I'm sorry, when I have the flu, okay, like anytime I've called in sick from work, I've come home and I've been like, oh, I'm just going to sit around and watch TV. But like, I really, really have enough energy to doodle for the most part, except for the time I had the swine flu. Hell no, couldn't even. But anytime I've been too sick to go to work, I've still been like well enough to kind of putter around the house a little bit. It's harder for me to stop moving and like sit down. So that's something I've kind of been learning. I don't know. This is kind of an irrelevant tangent maybe. So what you can know is that if you cave in today, no matter how plausible the pretext, you'll be twice as likely to cave in tomorrow. And this is something that's really been true for me. I tried to use the rule, if I haven't done it today, I have to do it tomorrow, which is a great rule, but I find that it's not very effective in actual my real life. So I really relate to, if you cave in today, no matter how plausible your excuse or the pretext, you will be twice as likely to cave in tomorrow. And again, that just goes with the longer it takes for me to, sit down and do my work, the harder it is for me to, or the more time between my sessions, the harder it is to sit down, right? So resistance is like a telemarketer. If you so much as say hello, you're finished. The pro doesn't even pick up the phone. He stays at work. We all have so many distractions, right? So try putting the phone down. How long can you last? So one of the things that really breaks my concentration the most is the noises on my phone. And what I do is basically my phone is on do not disturb like 24 hours a day. Occasionally I'll turn my phone off of do not disturb. So oftentimes people will call me and I'll have to call them back because I didn't hear it ringing, because I'm not going to have all my freaking messages dinging all day. Like there's just too many apps, too many notifications, too many people. So Zandra says, that's why I try to show up even just for 10 minutes. So I've done the sitting, which is the hard part. And then she says, word. Yes, I love that you're doing that. And it's really cool to have us continue reading these and have you guys continue showing up, because in a way, well, obviously we're all encouraging each other, but it's really cool to see the changes that we've made and to talk about the things that we've tried that are working for us. I think it's really helpful and inspiration. So I like hearing that. So a professional plays it as it lays. And he's talking about, what is it? Golf here. So he's talking about something, he was on a golf trip in Scotland and the caddy says to him, so then he's like complaining to his caddy because the wind threw his ball. And then the caddy says, well, you've got to play through the wind now, don't you? And then I thought that was cute, because we can complain about life not being fair. We can complain about all the distractions and the things that we have that get in the way. But the truth of the matter is that we have to show up for ourselves in spite of this. And we have to figure out how to make it work in spite of this. And I really like that. So the professional conducts his business in the real world, right? It's not fantasy land. This is the real world. We all have shit. We all have baggage, right? We all have shit that we can choose to bring with us into the present or leave where it was. So the professional conducts his business in the real world. The field is level. The professional understands only in heaven. Right? All right. So that was pretty good. Sandra says she liked that one. She liked the Scottish golfing analogy. I like that one too. It's cute. So let's see. What were we doing? 20 pages? 10, 15? We're on 82. When we go to 97. Let's do. Kim says, I posted the photo of the completed commission on the Creative Club Facebook. Oh my God, I have to check that out. I'm really excited. That's your trip to 3-panel one. Zandra says the next stop is book 3. Ooh, Zandra's cracking the whip on me. Okay, sure. Next stop's book 3. All right, Zandra, I'm with you, babe. So, Kim says, read to 101 like Zandra says. Yes, ma'am. I love it. All right, so what we're going to do next week, oops. Sorry about that. So what we're going to do next week is 82 to page 101. And Zandra's laughing at me. All right, babes. So 82 to 101 by next week. We'll meet here 2 p.m., whatever, Pacific time. And I will see y'all tomorrow or next week. I don't know anymore. All right, guys, I got some I got a delivery to do, and then picked up a shift, so I'm going to skedaddle. But it was lovely having you here. Glad that this, I'm actually really glad that I ended up doing this angle instead of the other one, because we had some interesting talking points here with this, what's going on behind me. So, all right. Love you too. Kim says, love you all. Zandra says, nice. Have a great day. Love you, babies. See you next week.